our solution to the mental health crisis faced by young people across the nation. I want to give a trigger warning before we go to our next slide. What you're about to see serves as a reminder for why we can't wait any longer to deal with this crisis. Headlines like these represent the harsh truth that our children face across the nation. How many of us recall hearing about a neighbor going through a mental breakdown, or a classmate that's going through a crisis leading to suicide? We see these every day, headlines and stories, and it doesn't get any easier. We're desensitized to these tragedies at this point. Even worse, they only scratch the surface of what's really going on. Young Americans every day are facing new pressures, academic pressures, financial struggles, facing new responsibilities with adulthood in a struggling nation. Over the past 2 decades, public health campaigns have helped to destigmatize these issues in mental health and beyond, yet we hear of these stories far too often. Let's take a closer look at the scale of the problem we're dealing with. So this map tells us a lot, similar to the map from our last presentation, but this is specifically for mental health. A vast majority of counties in the United States lack adequate access to any sort of mental health professional. McKinsey reports that over half of counties in America don't have a single psychiatrist. A single psychiatrist. Among college campuses, 60% of universities are struggling with turnover for professionals dealing with mental health issues. And 70% simply cannot recruit the right amount of professionals. This amounts to the startling result where 4 in 5 patients referred for mental health care don't receive that care. This data goes to show how isolated our patients are from the care they need. And even worse, young people are speaking so openly about these issues these days on social media, out in public, but the opportunities, the door to adequate treatment stays closed to these patients. Let me introduce you to one such patient. This is Naomi. Really, it's an AI image. This person doesn't technically exist, but we see her as no one who represents anyone. And her story is complicated. She comes from a small town in rural Pennsylvania where she struggled with bullying and feeling like an outsider. And she needed help. She got good support from her primary care doctor, how to deal with the stress, how to get through the day. However, she's in college now. She's hours away from home. She's away from her family. She's away from her old friends. She's away from her medical home. Naomi is alone, an outsider, once again in a foreign land. She tried calling on-campus counseling, but the waitlist was for weeks. And she tried downloading an app, a mental health app, Headspace, but it just wasn't enough to read through the prompts and complete the tasks. She needs a viable mental health service now. And that's where we come in. John?
Optum Intercare is a platform as a service, and we're focused on the behavioral health of our college students. From the end user experience, we see that students will be able to log into Optum Intercare at a telehealth kiosk, at a computer, at a tablet, on their smartphone. And on their first visit, we want students to fill out a brief survey regarding their mental wellness, provide their communication preferences, and be matched with a provider to begin their therapeutic relationship. So why is matching a client to the provider important? As we mentioned earlier, 4 out of 5 people diagnosed with mental illness do not receive mental health care after being referred. A primary reason for this referral to service gap is due to the amount of hoops that a patient must jump through to be able to see a provider. Questions that may arise are like, will this be covered by my insurance? Is this person accepting new patients? How many sessions am I supposed to go to? And is this even the right therapist for me? We leverage a proprietary algorithm to match patients with a compatible provider in the Pennsylvania Health Network. And the cornerstone of this algorithm is a 3 or 10-minute personal identity questionnaire, which then matches to a provider of a similar identity, should that be the patient's preference. The time to enter the market is now. Year over year, investing in revenue in this space is doubling. Over $550 million was invested into digital behavioral health over the first half of 2020. And there's growing competition. This is a fast-growing space. Companies like Ginger, Doctors on Demand, Teladoc Health, and so many others have already existed and are thriving. In 2022, there have already been 86 new entrants into this market that have started to receive early-stage funding. So we've designed our platform as a service with a strategic position to address a broad set of needs for many patients in a narrowly defined market, positioning us on the productivity frontier and maximizing our return on investment capital. Specifically, our college-age patient demographic is unique and has unique needs that aren't being met. We offer to reduce university overhead for their mental health services. We want to leverage the internal capabilities that already exist within Optum. They have a telehealth network. It just doesn't have behavioral health products from my understanding. And we want to advance upon this. We want to introduce incentives for virtual health activities, and we want to offer a quick and tailored questionnaire to match our patients with a provider that could help them through their mental health crises. What's more, we also want our model to introduce incentives for virtual health activities with a broader movement towards value-based care to save more money at the aggregate level, because emergency mental services are very expensive. There are large backups in terms of inpatient psychiatric needs, and it's a very costly amount of money for the health system, as well as at the government level and at the private insurance level. These activities give us a unique and valuable position, offering a sustainable competitive advantage in the market based off of Optum's expertise and large provider network. Our financial model projects invested capital to launch our platform as a service at only $55,000 if we were to leverage Optum's internal capabilities, or $200,000 if we were to use outside resources. Our timeline includes 6 months for app development, time to negotiate with colleges and universities to find our best fit for this project, and kiosk construction for our telehealth services so patients can feel comfortable at a space that is not their dorm room or in a busy closet. We want our beta launch to be in the summer semester of 2023, so we're perfectly in time for the new fall campaign in 2023. We'll roll out our platform as a service and kiosk at one campus and scale up our operations across Pennsylvania and hopefully eventually across the country. By bringing the provider to the campus through Optum InterCare, college students like Naomi can avoid the delayed wait times and the progression of their mental illness. Furthermore, we can intervene before students drop out of college due to mental health issues. This will decrease the cost to society and maximize the opportunity for our patients. In this way, Optum InterCare both reduces the harm that patients experience through the traditional referral process and provides cost saving compared to potential hospitalization due to the psychological distress.
Who is your target customer? The university, the college? Would they adopt your platform and make it available to their students?
Yeah, that's ideally what our customer would do.
Yeah. They would subscribe to your platform.
Yeah.
And then advertise to students.
Yeah.
Then what is the cost to the student?
So usually a requirement for universities is for students to have an insurance plan. So whatever their insurance plan, whatever their copays would be, if they're using the Optum platform, that's how much the cost will be on the student.
How is this not just BetterHelp, right? Like, are you familiar with that platform? I mean, it's almost exactly this. So I guess I'm wondering how, compared to that. I think Talkspace maybe is another one that's similar. What's the differentiator there? Or are you just, another option in that space?
Yeah, so I guess our primary thought on that is related to the pre-existing size of Optum. It has a telehealth service. And from what I understand, United Health Group is a large insurer for a lot of universities. So this could potentially be, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of like a walled garden. People will often describe Apple products like this. So you buy one Apple product, oh, you like iMessage, how about use it on your computer? So you keep on buying these services. So say United Health has a deal with a university and our Optum InterCare is able to provide the mental health services, because this is a lot of overhead for university. They're having trouble maintaining staff. And it's just overall been a more in-demand thing due to the mental health crisis that COVID has precipitated. And also the mental health needs that many of our students are more aware and feel comfortable seeking out. So we see that United Health insured schools could potentially use this as a way to, if the service works well for the school, they can maintain their relationship with or United Health and continue their insurance coverage with that insurer.
Is the differentiator the kiosk, or is it this matching questionnaire, which I assume you haven't validated to see if it works, but what is it that sets it apart from the others? I mean, I get the market piece, but it has the risk of saturating just like any other mental health product. That's almost like a given. So how do you, what is different about this than something like BetterHelp?
Yeah.
We talked about a few different features.
Do any of you guys want to speak?
Yeah, so we really tried to refine the strategic position to make both the survey questionnaire shorter than what's already existing in the market. However, not failing to recognize what people find to be their most personal identity traits if they were to want to be met with one of those types of providers. Additionally, we don't only refer our patients to physicians. We also refer them to whoever their should most be paired with. So it could be a mental health counselor, could be a psychologist, psychiatrist. Doesn't always have to be a physician. So we're referring to a broad array of professions that are within Optum's network. We're also targeting very specifically consumer segment, the college-age population. And a lot of these other apps, every other app does not specifically target one age group and demographic. So a lot of, at least college students, they might be afraid to even pursue these resources. They might not find them to be cool. They might find a lot of pressure in using them too. So I think that what we've discussed and what we've looked into is if we're able to market this product specifically toward this age group to make it something that they find relatable, to make it something that they're not afraid of, to make it something that their peers are talking about, that they know they can go to, all of a sudden, we're able to kind of separate ourselves from all the other players that are in the market. Like we talked about, already 86 new entrants that got early stage funding just in the very beginning of this year. There's too many options to choose from. You go into your app store, there's so many apps, but if your college is marketing this to you, this is the resource that we have that you're going to use. It saves a lot of headache for the student, and ultimately creates a barrier for them to get this care.
So you're talking about steerage, right? Personalized steerage to some extent, or actually quite a bit. And the questionnaire, you're saying it's a very simple questionnaire, but that's kind of contrary to something personalized. You need to have more information about that individual to make sure you're steering them to the right person. So have you really thought that through?
So we had also taken into consideration that if a patient wants to fill out a shorter survey, they might not be interested in matching with someone that uniquely identifies with who they are. They just want to talk to someone quick, as fast as they can. But if they are seeking something that's more personalized, we'll use one of the research-backed questionnaires that's already published in the literature that a lot of the other platforms are built upon. And that's our 10-minute questionnaire. But we want to leverage that as well with consumer surveys from this patient population to figure out, you can ask them every single question in the questionnaire. What are the questions? What are the identity traits that they find most important, that they want to be connecting with people on? Because you can ask them thousands of questions, but ultimately we want to get it down to something that's quick and doesn't lose the attention span of a patient that might have ADHD. When they're filling out a survey, by the end of it, they have already lost their attention and they moved on to something different.
And then who reviews those responses? Is that a professional? Like who makes the decision, or what makes the decision?
Yeah. So this is more so about leveraging AI and trying to figure out, after a provider, any one of these types of counselors has filled out their survey as well, the 10-minute questionnaire, you figure out which are the most similar. And the best example I'd have is if you apply to be an intern at Google, all of the Google teams also submit the same exact survey for what they're looking for their team. And ultimately, they use an AI matching algorithm to figure out where people belong that are most similar. And we'll leverage the same type of strategy in regards to this matching.
And the cost of the visits, you said, would be billed to insurance, but in a lot of kids are on their parents' insurance. So have you thought through the uptake issues around, because there's going to be a bill or a statement of services that ends up in the parent's house. So have you thought about alternative payment models other than that would make this work? Because otherwise people might not sign up for it.
Yeah, we think that it's critically important with these virtual health activities to step away from the fee-for-service mentality, reimbursement parity, and try to go into something that, United Health might be able to offer, like discounts or incentives for patients that are pursuing these types of virtual health activities, so that it could, for one, be free to the patient at that time, with United Health knowing in the future they won't be back seeking their services, ultimately driving up more cost to the system. Or it could eventually be a patient that really enjoys the services that we provide, ultimately going into a monthly payment plan, where still United Health is offering a discount to that patient with a little bit of revenue to offset some of like the upfront costs from the discount to the patient. In the end, saving, I guess, costs to United Health as a greater organization if one of these patients was to have to go seek psychiatric emergency services, be admitted inpatient, or also the cost to society as well. If the patient drops out of college or they end up killing themselves. The other aspect to this is colleges and universities have an incentive here as well, that if these students stay admitted in their schools, ultimately it drives up their revenue. So United Health has an opportunity to negotiate that into contracts with these universities and colleges to try to get reimbursement in that regard.